Hi guys, in this tutorial we'll look at the technique I use when I want to paint hair in watercolors. This painting process consists of 3 stages. Firstly, I'll tell you how to adjust your sketch to make the painting easier. Then we'll prepare the colors we'll use in this piece, and finally there is the layering and actual painting. I've prepared this light preliminary sketch as captures the basic shape of the hair we can see in the photo reference. However, if I want to paint over it, I need to draw in all of the main locks and simplify the hair into few basic shapes. Although I sometimes draw in all of the detail in my time-lapses, it's only for the purpose to make the time-lapse video look better. After a few layers, I won't be able to see the sketch anyway. But there is nothing wrong in preserving the lines as long as you can, so make sure to press enough with your pencil. Don't worry, since the hair creates completely different textures than the skin, you won't have to erase it later. By the way, if you want to sketch this exact picture, I've put the link down below in the description box. It's a photograph of Gigi Hadid. Well, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Yeah, but I changed it a lot. Some of her features, color of the skin, eyes, well, and we'll also change the color of the hair as well. Since I already did tutorial on blonde hair, link in the description box, I wanted to show you how to mix natural brown shades for hair as well. Yeah, but of course, if you have a different photo reference in front of you, it's always better to identify the shades variations you'll use from the picture. But since I can't do it this time, I decided to mix my own shade variations, following a few rules you should stick to every time you are picking a color palette for the hair in your painting. Firstly, always choose from 3 to 5 color shades. I think that's an ideal number because otherwise your painting will look either bland or overworked. The second rule is that you should keep your color scheme simple. Ideally just mix more and more black into the brown until you get the final number of shades. That is, if you want the hair to look natural. I didn't obey this rule in my previous tutorial because it was focused on painting dyed blonde hair. I'll test these variations of colors on a scrap of paper and adjust the shades to my liking. Believe it or not, if you test the colors you'll use before painting, it'll really take your skills to another level and save you from getting some real-world gray hair. Although I completely understand if you don't believe me. Personally, I was too lazy to do this for a long time, which is probably the reason I have some gray hair, even though I'm still a teenager. Is that rather common? I'm not sure, but if you know someone who shares this feature too, let me know in the comments below. My friends are acting like it's a fascinating curiosity and tearing those hairs out to take a closer look. And it rarely hurts, so I would be grateful for any comments that will prove my hair normal. Yeah, and if you don't know anyone like that, you can show your support by liking this video. Yeah, that is something I would be grateful for too. Okay, back to the video. Let's finally grab our brushes. By the way, I advise you to have 2. One bigger with which you can apply the first layer, and the second should be as thin as possible. Let's apply the first layer, starting with the lightest shade we mixed. This layer should be solid, and don't worry if it's a little imperfect. Most of it will be covered either way in the end, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, and now wait for your painting to dry. Next layer is much more important, and here I would advise you to switch between the brushes. If you use an absolutely thin brush, painting might take a little longer, so it's up to you if you want to use instead something in between those brushes or not. By the way, have you ever heard the art advice that your hair should flow like a river? Well, it never made sense to me since I have no understanding for poetry and I have seen some rivers myself. Well, or at least on picture. But it's a common fact that there are rocks in its current and it can end in a waterfall. These two things can destroy the smoothness hair should possess. However, this art advice basically means that the hair or your brush strokes should flow in the same direction. Try to make these strokes as thin as possible, although this is a stage when it doesn't really matter if you accidentally make some hair too thick. You should make sure that your brush is wet enough. That way it'll be easier to produce steady lines. And keep your hand relaxed, that way you'll make the hair appear loose and smooth, like a river if you want to be poetic. In this painting I'm using 4 layers. Before I move on to another, I'll trace a few loose hair to make it look natural. This is something I do only with the layers 2 and 3. And besides that it looks beautiful, another benefit of this is that I'm giving the painting time to dry. And it is really important to use the wet on dry technique if you don't want to lose all the detail. Now I'm continuing with layer 3. I'm trying to keep the highlights gradient, that way it looks more natural. You can see that almost nothing of the first layer appears on the surface right now, and that's just because my photo reference is rather dark and according to it there shouldn't be any strong highlights. However, if you are painting anything else, it's good to keep them there to make the contrast higher. Finally, if your hair still looks bland, it's time to add a little bit darker color, alias layer 4. I'm adding some finishing touches to the darkest parts in the hair using black, but all in all, I consider the hair finished. At last, let's take a step back and adjust a few details. I think I should simplify the hair a little more, there is too much confusing detail, and the colors should be more united. Yeah, and I think I'm done. Yeah, you are not, since you have yet to consider subscribing to my channel if you want to get more content like this, or support a suffering person with a few prematurely gray hair. Well, whatever. Thank you for your time, and I hope some of this helped you, and yeah, have a beautiful day.